Welcome to my world. That was a little bit cheesy, but listen, for the horror theme, gotta add in a little Matthew McConaughey from A Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. So, I figured it would be unfair and unjustified if I left you all with kind of a sad podcast, sad video, which was the last episode. Which celebrity death hit you the hardest? So, I figured, what the hey, we'd do us a little something different, bounce from that into some horror. So let's get right into it. Tonight we're going to talk about our favorite horror sequels. It does not have to be a beautiful sequel. It don't have to be The Gone with the Wind. It don't have to be Back to the Future Part 2. It don't have to be something so. It can be something wacky. It can be one of the weirder sequels of a franchise. Who cares? It's what you like. It's what I like. So we're going to discuss that tonight. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Hit and subscribe and like. Do all three of those. Hit, like, subscribe, yeah, and share it. So I'm still getting the hang of this. So as the old folks on Mud Creek would say, look over me while I get to going. So the first one we're going to talk about is Nightmare on Elm Street. The Springwood slasher himself, Freddy Krueger, who terrorized children and their parents throughout the 80s and 90s and still today, a few years back, remake. So Robert Englund portrayed Freddy Krueger, and I know this word gets thrown around a lot, but iconic. We seen the remake with Jackie Earle Haley. Me and Jerry, my buddy, who done the Lost Boys and Fright Night the other day, we just decided Jackie Earle Haley was one of the best choices you could get to replace Robert Englund, and it didn't work. So a lot of people kind of think after the first Nightmare that they all got a little comedic and stuff. I think I'm going to shoot straight from the hip here. I like a few of the sequels of Nightmare on Elm Street. A couple of them were a little bit wacky, but they all were a mind trip. I mean, they all had cool kills. They all had cool sceneries, different dreams. That was awesome. My favorite sequel, and this is something that I've come to learn with my favorite sequels of the horror franchises. It seems like a lot of my favorites are Part 3. Yes, Dream Warriors, where Freddy invades the dreams of kids in a mental asylum, and there is one scene that gave me nightmares as a child, and that's when the kid that works with the string puppets and stuff, Freddy invades his dreams, pulls his ligaments and stuff out of his arms and feet, and he's walking him to the edge of the, I guess it's the top of the asylum, man, and Freddy's above him, using the strings, and he walks him off, and you see from the dream aspect that Freddy's up there, but everybody that's watching this happen screaming for the kid to wake up because they think he's just sleepwalking, and they don't see Freddy, and the kid just walks right off the ledge. And that's one of my, when I'm talking Nightmare on Elm Street, a lot of the scary moments are from the first one. There's some good ones. Love the waterbed scene, but that was later on down the road. That kill right there, man, that really bothered me. That really did. That was, when I was a kid watching that, man, it was scary. There's so many good characters. That's one thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is the cast. They always put kids together. They all were different. And this one, they had the kid in the wheelchair, used his powers. That was the thing. They brought Heather Langenkamp back. She counseled them with help with a counselor. And they would go in their dreams and they would select the power they wanted to fight Freddy off. One guy got like superhuman strength. One girl became like a tough biker girl, was good with weapons. And then the kid in the wheelchair possessed like wizard skills and everything. And it's a real cool movie, man. Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, and I also liked, honorable mention, I'll say, I liked Freddy's Dead. A lot of people didn't like it. I liked it. I love the credits with Iggy Pop singing Why Was I Born with the montage. I think that's one of the best, well done credits for a movie ever. If you get a chance, check that out, Freddy's Dead, the end credit scene, you won't regret it. But overall, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, that would be my favorite sequel from the Freddy Krueger franchise. Felt like something was hovering over me there. I got a little spooked, but let's roll on. So we've knocked that one out. What should we do next? If I had to spin the wheel, make the deal right now, I'd just spin it and it would roll. But we don't have that. So we're going to go with Friday the 13th. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Friday the 13th, which ironically part 3 would, and I enjoy a lot of the Friday the 13th sequels. I mean, the older I get, the more I appreciate part 5, which as a child I didn't like. It was the copycat killer. Like I said, the older I get, I appreciate that storyline and what they did. But part 3, when Richard Brooker played Jason Voorhees, a lot of stuff happened in that movie that would carry on the tradition of the franchise. The hockey mask, the kid Shelly who's playing pranks on everybody has the hockey mask. When Jason kills him, he takes it forever, puts it on, and la la, history from that point on. The cast of that movie was very likable. I loved the cast. I loved that it was in a cabin in the early 80s. The scenery was beautiful. I can remember watching a lot as a teenager, and you identified with those kids in that one. Jason hadn't yet transformed into like the zombie superhuman killer you couldn't do nothing with. This Jason was human. He had obviously put on more muscle from the second part, which he was in overalls and a sack on his head. And this one kind of looked like a logger, I guess you would say, somebody just solid with a work shirt on and khakis. But there's a cool scene with the bikers up in the barn. I thought that was pretty neat. It's in 3D, which a lot of people don't dig. I thought it was cool. There's some real cool kills. Squeezing a guy's head, his eyeball pops out at the camera, and it's all tricky. I mean, it's dated, but it's still fun. I mean, it's a fun horror movie. There's not a lot of bad language in it. And one of the few Friday the 13th, I think. No, I'm wrong on that one. But it's a fun one. There's a side story where the girl goes out to the cabin with her friends, and she tells them about a year or two ago, she goes out into the hills and falls asleep, and Jason gets after her. She gets away. But it's my favorite of the franchise. And honorable mention of Friday the 13th would probably be part 6, Jason Lives. It was more fun. It was more, Alice Cooper did a lot of the music for the movie. It kind of felt like an MTV era. C.J. Graham done a wonderful job as Jason Voorhees, big imposing dude. It's a fun movie to check out. It was probably, growing up, it was when I was real little, I got into Friday the 13th, that was the one I always wanted to watch. But part 3, gonna go Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Friday the 13th, part 3, 3D. So that's gonna knock those 2 out. And that's gonna be it for those. Let's go on to Halloween. Michael Myers, Haddonfield. Which one would I choose for my favorite sequel of that? And I'm going to say, there's a few good sequels that stick out to me to that one, but the best one is the original part 2. Halloween, Rob Zombie came out with a part 2, and it was just to put it nicely, it wasn't my cup of tea. Now the first sequel, after the John Carpenter classic, was amazing. I thought it was as good a sequel as any movie had. I mean, not just horror, but any genre, period. That's when she's in, Jamie Lee Curtis goes to the hospital. Michael Myers isn't done with his rampage. He continues on till he tracks her down to the hospital. The rest is history. I don't want to spoil it for you. 95% of you guys have seen it probably. But it is vicious, man. Dick Warlock played him this time. I met Dick Warlock at Darkwood's convention. It was a horror convention, and I don't know why it hasn't been back. It was so awesome. It was at Pikeville at the Landmark. It was really well done. Michael Berryman was there, and Dick Warlock was there. Al Snow. We just had, I mean, it was cool. Horror fan like myself getting to see these guys. And I talked to Dick Warlock. Dick Warlock, who was Kurt Russell's personal stunt double. He told us about how he got that gig. But the way Dick Warlock, it was a little bit different walk, mannerisms and stuff. He was not a huge dude either, but man, he did his eyes in that mask and when he's in that hospital is downright creepy, man. And the kill where he takes the girl and puts her in the hot tub over and over until her skin falls off. I can remember watching it on TV with my mom. She must have watched the VHS years before I got to watch it, and I was probably 9 years old, 8, 9 years old. And she told me, she said, he messes her up pretty bad. Well, it didn't show it on the USA cut, so I had to wait later on down the road before I got to see the graphic death scene of that young lady. So that overall, Halloween 2 is probably the most well done sequel of all the movies that I'm going to tell you about. So you can watch Halloween 1 and 2 back to back, and it is awesome, man. It's something I suggest starting in late August. I always start my Halloween festivities in late August because once September rolls around, I don't even care if it's fall or not. Like, it is to me. So I start everything then. Well, actually, I start it right now, as you can tell. But Halloween 2, you can't go wrong there. Honorable mention of Halloween is a tie between 4 and 6. A lot of people don't like 6. I loved it. It came out in the mid-90s, and I thought that it was great. Modern. I thought it was like modern. There was a lot of alternative music that was played in it. The clothing was kind of like an alternative grunge look the kids were wearing. It had a real dark feel to it. They killed Jamie off at the front of it, spoiler alert, but other than that, he was vicious. He was very vicious in that one. A lot of brutal death scenes. And part 4, which was very well done also. If it wasn't for part 2, I would say part 4 was probably the best done. A lot of people will say H2O, but I'm just going with the original sequels and stuff. I didn't like H2O. I didn't like it too much. I didn't like the Michael Myers. I didn't like how he was portrayed. Now, part 4, the director did a wonderful job with that one. I can remember the scene when I was real tiny, when I think Rocky or Jason had rented it, and we were watching it one night because we'd all gather in the living room with their friends, and I wouldn't last long. But Michael Myers wakes up in the ambulance and takes his thumb and sticks to the guy's forehead, and I can just remember that was it for me. I was out. But those would be the honorable mentions for Halloween. So, Halloween 2. Now we are going to go. Do I want to do Texas Chainsaw right now? Because that's a big one. We'll probably go Child's Play right now. Not really wild about Child's Play. I do like a few of the movies, but obviously I've been saying obviously so much. Look over me. But Child's Play 1 with Chris Sarandon in it, man, was killer. And Brad Dourif, I loved before he turned into Chucky the Doll. Charles Ray, I liked that scene of him and Chris Sarandon at the front before he goes into the toy store. I thought that was killer. The original's awesome, though. It is. It's a fun movie. Tom Holland, who directed Fright Night. Chris Sarandon, who was my all-time favorite vampire. Jerry Dandridge played Fright Night, so there was a connection there also in this movie. But my favorite Child's Play sequel, and it was scary for when I was tiny, man, was part 2. I thought part 2 was, oh man, that scene where he's in the closet and takes the pump and sticks in the teacher's chest and then beating her with that ruler, and it's a yardstick, I guess, yeah. And you can see the ruler or the yardstick in the window going down, and then the scene like getting longer, farther out, and you still seeing it, and then you see like leaves blowing. I thought that was a well done scene. I like that one a lot. I like the ending to it also. I can remember him melting in that toy factory. I thought that was pretty cool. Spoiler alert, but you can't get mad at me because these movies are 20 and 30 year old. So that was probably my favorite one. Let's go honorable mention. I'll go part 3 when he's grown up in Andy's grown up. He's in military camp or not military. It's military school, I think. But he jumps pretty old, pretty fast in those. I didn't like that. I didn't like how Andy was like 7, 8 years old, and then like 3 years later, they come up with a new Child's Play, and Andy's like 18, 19. Maybe a little bit younger, but there was a scene I always stuck out in my mind where one of Andy's friends sees a grenade. Chucky had threw a grenade or had pulled the pin or something, and he sees it and he runs and jumps on it to save everybody, and that bothered me. I don't know, it tugged on my heartstrings. The kid give his life for his friends, you know. So yeah, I had an emotional moment in Child's Play 3. I may be the only person in the world, but hey, I did. So we had Child's Play 2 for my favorite sequel, Part 3, honorable mention. Let's see here. Do we break out the chainsaw yet? I know a lot of people are going to say, you know, I'm not going to, the Leprechauns of the world, I'm just not going to go there. I just don't feel like there was any worthy sequels. The original was fun. I liked it. It was good as a kid. Warlock Davis done an amazing job in costume and everything as Leprechaun. And Jennifer Aniston was in it when she was young. I can remember Lindsay calling me on the phone, and her and when Kennedy couldn't have been, my little sister-in-law, she couldn't have been 2 years old, and she was loving Leprechaun when he was on that tricycle. But that's as much Leprechaun as you're gonna get out of me today. So let's see here. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As you can tell, it holds a special place in my heart. The original is a masterpiece. The original is a masterpiece. It was shot on about $5 and so realistic, so haunting, so scary. It's a movie of anxiety, really, watching it for the first time, just the feel of it. You can't replicate that. You can't. When they remade it, they didn't even try to go that route. They did awesome on the remake. One of the best remakes of a horror film ever. And that's saying a lot coming from a massive fan of the original. But the original is something that every horror fan should see at a young age. It goes to show you that you don't need a lot of blood. You don't need profanity. You don't need a lot of... I mean, this movie had human emotions in it. I mean, it was straight up scary. And the way everything unfolds in it, it throws you a curveball with the cook. So it's about a family of three brothers living out in the, not even out in the middle of nowhere. They're kind of like right in the town. They're just off the road. The older brother runs a gas station, sells barbecue. If you watch it, you'll find out what the barbecue is. He's a likable guy. And you'll see the other brother, the middle brother, who's the hitchhiker. He's a nutcase. You can't act as good as Ed Neal. Ed Neal in that role is amazing. I mean, he is legitimately crazy, a lunatic. And the van scene, when he gets in the van and you first see the hitchhiker, you will not forget it. And then obviously the youngest brother, Leatherface, who would go on to be the iconic killer, the brute, the man, the enforcer of the family that takes care of the business, gets everything. You know, the hitchhiker basically sends them to Leatherface. Leatherface chops them up, gets them ready to be processed. Cook sells them at a meat stand at his gas station. So you've got 5 kids, travel out there, go to their grandparents' house, and run out of gas, and venture over to Leatherface and the brother's house, and each one by one they're knocked off, man. And there's not a lot of blood. It's just it's a movie of dread. The feeling is dread. And then the ending is iconic. I've said that a few times, but the ending is, man, your heart's beating 100 miles a minute watching that. When she jumps out of that window, it is on from that moment on. But as far, you know, I'm sure everybody's watched Chainsaw and they've got their favorite sequels. And I'm the type of guy that I won't disagree. There's only one sequel of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise that I don't even consider it existing, and that's the 2017 Leatherface. I don't even consider it part of the franchise, and that's sad because I was really looking forward to it. But I have a special place in my heart for each sequel. But if I had to pick one, it's going to be Part 3, 1990 Leatherface, with R.A. Mihailoff portraying Leatherface, who did a magnificent job. Leatherface in the original was kind of childlike and was kind of pushed around by his brothers and told what to do. And in this one, he's kind of brought into another set of relatives after his brothers are dead or are gone. He's kind of with another another string of the family, I guess, a younger family. And he's more of a rebellious teenager. In this one, he's got that feel to him. He's listening to hard rock on his earphones, and but it's brutal. And the original cut of the movie was so brutal that it had got an NC-17, so they had to go do a tremendous amount of cuts, a lot of cuts. And Jeff Burr told me, as the director, that the movie, the final product, wasn't even half of what he had put together because they chopped it up so bad. The original was way gorier, a lot more vicious death scenes. I mean, it was, and if you read a little bit of the script, you can see how different it was. And I mean, for that movie to have been chopped up and dissected and tamed as much as it was, I still love the theatrical version. So I couldn't imagine. I mean, I like the unrated version also, which we get to see, but it's still not what the original draft was by Jeff Burr. Soundtrack, home run. Heavy metal soundtrack, great songs on it, man. I mean, they're heavy, but they've got good rhythm to them. Laz Rocket with Leatherface, Death Angel Board, Wrath, Worlds Collide. I mean, there's some. I bought the CD when I was going into my senior year of high school, and I would jam it out in the mornings on the way to school. I think I was just the baddest dude ever. Obviously, I wasn't, but that was a fun time. The cast, loved the family in this one. I thought they did a wonderful job, because after part 2, they got whole new actors, which they got Joe Unger as the Tinker character. He's basically the brains behind the operation, got a hook for a hand. You got Tex, who's kind of like the cook, makes you think he's a good guy at first. Ruggedly handsome guy, kind of got some chemistry going with the leading lady. Come to find out he's not who they thought he was, actually one of Leatherface's relatives. Then you've got Tom Everett as Alfredo, who's just kind of like the hitchhiker from the original, just a blatant psychopath, crazy, speaking gibberish nonstop. I love the mother in this one. I thought they did a really good job with the mother in this one. And Leatherface's girl, so he had a girl or one of the brothers' daughters. I think it was meant to be his daughter though, but they did as good a job on a family as I thought they did. That was my second favorite family nucleus of the franchise. Let's see here. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 to me. Honorable mention for Chainsaw. I'm going to say the remake for sure. They all, like I said, they all have a special place in my heart. I can tell you great things about them all, except for that 2017 film. I thought the remake was a home run. It was a grand slam, really. Michael Bay produced it. They did kill it, dude. They really did. Andrew Bernarski played Leatherface, but he was much more in the vein of like a Jason or Michael Myers from a Rob Zombie, just vicious. And it was a different take on Leatherface, and he did good at it. He did do good at that role. But I did like Dan Yeager's Texas Chainsaw 3D. I thought he followed the Gunnar Hansen blueprint. He studied, and I've got to know Dan Yeager. Wonderful guy. Hoping to get him on my podcast as an interview. We're in talks. But Texas Chainsaw 3D, I liked it for what it was. I wish that he would have had more family besides his little cousin or his niece, whatever she was. But there was just some cheesy one-liners which that's horror sequels. That's horror movies. They're going to get that. You know, I'm not going to judge them on that. But as far as the actual character goes, Dan Yeager did awesome. He followed, like I said, he studied Gunnar Hansen tremendously. And I'm going to take a lot of heat, but I love the newest one that went straight to Netflix, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I thought Mark Burnham, a lot like Dan Yeager, followed that Gunnar Hansen blueprint and did wonderful. I thought he did. The only thing I would have changed if I would have been directing that is I would have made Mark Burnham look just a little bit older. I still thought he looked like he was kind of like his age right now. I thought he needed to be at least 60 to 65 looking. A little more gray. And it would have been perfect because he did a good job. And I like that they give him a little bit of a different look with the tanned overalls, the dress shirt or the dark dress shirt underneath. I like that. And which I love part 2. I like the Next Generation also, and the beginning. I've got a love for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's going to be my favorite horror sequel of that franchise. Now, my buddy Jerry Scott wasn't with me tonight. I'm getting ready to go on a cruise. We'll try to do one of these on the cruise. I'd like to do one in the cruise. But if I don't, I gave you two guys. I gave you guys two new ones tonight. Two guys, my two dads, great TV show on USA back in the day. I'm thinking about doing an episode on USA Up All Night also. There were some great B movies on that, but like I said, I appreciate. It's time for me to cut this off because I can't talk. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe, share this, help me get the word out. Whatever you got to do, be on the lookout for guests, local guests, regular guests, special guests. So thank you guys. Let me know what your favorite horror sequels was, or is, or are. I'm going to have to get an English translator, it's looking like. So look over me, like I said. Thank you guys for tuning in to a Wild Time podcast. Get out of here.